Welcome back to the theme park universe, episode 3. With the Vashsky and I, we're gonna break down some good old analysis on a big Disneyland expansion, the Disneyland Forward rezoning project. Vash, where can people find you besides this lovely podcast?
Well, if you're not watching me already on the amazing theme park universe, you can catch me at that park place for all the news that should be fun. And occasionally, I'll be on Pro's show every once in a while doing videos there. So, WDW Pro and that park place with Jonas there, that is absolutely where you can find me if I'm not already right here.
Oh, that's right. That means you can get a daily dose of Dr. Dre whenever you want him. You know what I'm saying? A
It,
daily dose.
it is quite interesting to think about. People might be watching me daily. That's okay. Those are big questions. Well, you know what? Also, are big questions. Rough transition. Deadline here. Disneyland expansion plans take another step as environmental impact report is released. This is by Bruce Herring right here. This is what we've been waiting for, Wizard. We've been waiting for this for quite a long time.
Mhm.
I originally thought after Disneyland Forward had actually made its debut that we might be getting the environmental impact report in as little as 18 months. Well, that didn't quite happen. or maybe it did. I don't think so. Okay. Yeah, it took a while. It took a while, but it is finally here. And why did it take so long, guys? Well, it's 17,000 pages. Wizard, take it
That's
away.
right. 1,000 with a zero, 3 zeros there. 17,000 pages with every detailing, everything from what can happen, what can be proposed, uh, the sound levels, noise levels, what can they fit, what do they want to change the zoning to. It's pretty big, I know, over this 30-year plan here.
It's
And
pretty big. This is not a situation where Disney has a sweetheart deal like they did have in Florida. No, no. When it comes to the relationship between the city of Anaheim and Disney, it's a very somewhat regulated, somewhat tenuous relationship, right? There are certain
Mhm.
restrictions with how Disney can actually use their property. Now, some people might take issue with that, but think about it here. If you have 17,000 cars, let's say, driving into this place every single day, and you have an order of 60,000, 70,000, 80,000 people visiting your property, well, obviously that's going to have some kind of impact on the community around it, right? So the EIR, or the Environmental Impact Report, goes into a very precise specificity on what are going to be the impacts of Disney's investment in this area. How is the traffic going to be affected? How is, if you build hotel rooms, where are those spaces going to be? All those kind of things that could really, if you're living around this place, even noise that attractions nearby generate, you would want kind of a little bit more, I don't know, you'd want some regulation around that, right? That's what the EIR provides. It is this kind of this two-way negotiation, if you will, between what Disney wants to do and what the city will allow Disney to do.
Mhm.
Is that
Yeah.
a fair statement, Wizard?
Oh yes, definitely a fair statement. And they, before they come up with it, they go ahead and they have a lot of community meetings. I went to one of those meetings and kind of
That's right.
gather some input from the community, what they want, what they prefer, and kind of share an idea of what they want. Disney will share an idea of what they want to the community. They can kind of make a little compromise, and so then take all that feedback, and then they put it into, this is the draft environmental report. Then there's a 2-month public comment period, and then they'll come back with the final one, and then uh, that way it's the best possible outcome between residents and the city and Disney to get towards approval there, which would be pretty good. It should be nice and smooth sailing, hopefully.
Right. And now that the EIR is released, we're now in that kind of public comment and notice and comment period right here, where people are kind of debating whether or not we want Disney to actually be approved for these things going forward. This article says on Thursday, Anaheim released a 17,000-page environmental impact report for Disney's proposed expansion, known as Disneyland Forward. There was good and bad in the outlook. The report claims the expansion would significantly impact air quality, greenhouse gas emissions, and noise, but would inflict minimal impact on transportation and neighborhood aesthetics. Disney would have to build temporary sound barriers during construction and permanent. Oh, sorry. My computer just ran away with it. Disney would also have to build temporary sound barriers during construction and permanent 12-foot tall noise barriers along property lines. Fireworks would also be prohibited in expansion areas to avoid excessive noise levels in the surrounding communities, according to the report. It's interesting. Let's switch over to that report and see what those sound levels actually look like. You can see that
and
here.
folks, the sound barriers would likely be show buildings, not just some retaining wall like on a freeway. So don't worry about that.
Absolutely, yes. And Disney, I believe, made that a point of emphasis to you, Wizard, specifically. Like, hey, look, listen, if we build anything along these property lines, because, well, if you can see here, this is what you're looking at here, folks, is the area to the west of Disneyland core right now. So the place where you park your car at the Mickey and Friends parking structure all the way down to Catella Avenue. And if you're familiar with this area, you'll know that Walnut Avenue, west of this whole area right here, just beyond it is a residential community right there. You can see that reflected in the allowable noise decibel areas, right? You can see how it's blue right there. They only allow those residential areas to produce anywhere between 45 to 50 decibels, whereas in the core here, in this this place where Disney is looking to set up a theme park potentially, you can see that the allowable decibel range is much higher. But you can see there is kind of a delineating line there between that residential area and the kind of proposed expansion pad as part of Disneyland Forward. I can't really. Maybe should I zoom in? I don't think so. You can kind of see it here, though. You can see kind of how there is a barrier of kind of blue along the yellow, which is produced by traffic and so forth. There's a kind of a blue zone surrounding each of these surrounding the nexus of the noise radiation kind of thing, right? So that is some of the stuff that the EIR actually goes into. And just like Wizard said, in order to maintain that noise barrier, you would enclose any of your attractions that you would have had on that edge inside of ride buildings and show buildings and so forth.
Yeah. And so now this is an interesting question. Right here. That I was curious about.
Sure.
Because I'm curious on your opinion. Because as noted, Disney, based on this, can fit 13 attractions in here. Now, They floated a couple ideas, an expansion for Disneyland and California Adventure, or even as noted here on the Disneyland Florida website, says possible immersive third theme park. Now, which one, Dr. Dre, do you think would which one do you want, and which one do you think the most would be the best for the company? Because I know, as we discussed before, a new theme park or a new gate would psychologically, right, increase ticket sales, right? Because I have to spend another day there. So if they made this a third theme park, do you think it makes better financial sense, or would you want them to expand the current theme parks?
It doesn't make financial sense. Yeah, probably. for some time. The only issue with actually making this a third theme park, though, is that, well, it's kind of limited when it comes to expansion. You would be
Yeah, that is true.
basically in replacement mode on day one, right? So
Mhm.
that there are some complicating factors with that. I understand that, Dusty. Let's say from Mice Chat slash Message, right? He has been pretty bullish that this is going to be the third park, and I understand those feelings. And yes, you can fit a number of attractions in there. And honestly, I mean, when comparing to say the Floridian parks out there from either
Mhm.
company, 13 big time attractions, actually a pretty good size, good number. However,
Mhm.
with the Disney parks, that would be kind of underbuilt in a similar way that we kind of feel that DCA right now is underbuilt. So for me
Mhm.
personally, I mean, I would like the Paradise Pier Hotel to be knocked off and have California Adventure take over that area, Disneyland take over that top area and build that up to maximum density, and it'd be awesome. However, we had to also think realistically what's most likely going to happen. I think what's most likely going to happen here is you're going to get expansion across Disneyland Drive from
Mhm.
DCA into this area, right? And occupy that kind of lower third, lower half area right there. I think
Mhm.
we're not going to be seeing much investment to the north of this area for quite some time because, to be honest, really only Disneyland could take advantage of that area to the north. It wouldn't make sense to have this sprawling theme park wrap around, right? Disneyland would most likely be taking that area. And to be honest, Disneyland is, well, as you know, an old friend would say, Disneyland's already stacked. Right, it already has
Yeah.
so many attractions, right? So why, I mean, I don't really see the usefulness in making this a third theme park, nor some of the proposals that have been out there. It just doesn't make much sense to me. I think
Uh,
expanding DCA to the lower half, I think, is in our immediate future.
what IP would you put in here if you had to choose that would fit that you would think would fit consistently thematically with California Adventures tone?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question here because, as Disneyland Forward describes itself, the possibilities, right? They are endless, and I
Mhm.
believe they show, I think, like Neverland or something down there. It's very kind of
They sh- yeah,
fantasy-ish, right?
they show Neverland and a little bit of Wakanda, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, and Disney has recommitted themselves to franchises. So for people out there thinking that we're going to get something
Mhm.
original here, the answer is no. So as far as what exists right now and the ideas that I've heard kind of thrown around here, I would very much be very interested in like hey, maybe you can bring some of those Encanto ideas that are being proposed right now for Walt Disney World over here.
Mhm.
Maybe some Coco
Maybe like in
ideas
that, yeah,
drop
like
in here.
Kanto Coco Land. That'd be cool.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
Central America, it's Mexico Land or something like that.
Oh yeah, those would be. I think those would be fantastic and very consistent with the larger or broader California story. Obviously, not everything fits in this nice and neat little package there. But if you squint your eyes hard enough, you can kind of see it fit in. Sort of like Ariel's Undersea Adventure right now, California Adventure.
Yeah.
It's an odd fit, but it can work, and I think
Mhm.
those kind of franchises can very easily work here. They might not be the most ambitious things, and I think you would need some kind of anchor attraction, some kind of e-ticket to kind of bring people down here, right? Because
Mhm.
this is a long way out here. You're going to need something to get people that far. As far as that anchor goes, I'm not quite sure. You could go very fantasy with it, fantasy literally, with what Disney
Uh-huh.
Tokyo Disney Sea is actually doing. But I'd like them to go bigger, bolder with something. But man, it's this isn't the ideal area to actually you know come up with different attractions for, because there are some limitations here for sure. You can't just build a Cosmic Rewind and put it right there, right? There are spatial restrictions.
Mhm.
The size of that is massive, and there are limitations imposed on that as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting, yeah, because looking at the chart, good thing is Disney has said they're committed to building any visible structures in 360-degree theming. So that means the theming will be like the Matterhorn going all around you. Super
Right.
awesome visually. Um, and they list some of the potentials here, and you see some outdoor thrill rides in the center and some indoor thrill rides and show buildings. And yeah, I mean that's I'm glad they're being ambitious and pretty creative with the space that limited space they have over there. So I'm curious to see when this what what they would put there when it was approved, and if it would be opening in 2500 or 2600, or maybe the year 20, or maybe the 3000th century. But it would be great for
Yeah, I
those
mean
people
it's
way down the line.
that's the kind of the funny thing about all of this, right? Is you know, I mean, even if you look at the multi-step process that you have right here, we're still a long way from even Disneyland Forward being approved, much less, or much more, I should say, a project being approved for this specific spot. I think there are, you know, rather than expanding the parks, right? And you see this right here, where these are some of the proposed items that they could actually undertake here at Disneyland Resort. We've heard Josh D'Amaro and Bob Iger actually very recently say that this has a lot of potential. Before that potential can be unleashed, let's say, the more immediate issues revolving the Disneyland Resort, I think they revolve around, well, the Eastern Gateway project. I think a lot of this you really cannot do unless the Eastern Gateway project is approved and built. And I think part of the EIR actually goes into that with some amount of specificity. You can actually see here. Let me see if I can get this for you. Yeah. So
There it is.
right. So you can see here, this is the proposed area for the Eastern, the I guess version 2 of the Eastern Gateway project, right? But a lot of those things still exist, as you put in NetWizard, and you can kind of see that reflected in the EIR report itself. There is a walkway here, a cement sidewalk that exists along this east parking area listed here on this map. That if this EIR was approved, they would actually I guess what is it? Abandon or they would they would make defunct. They would erase, right? They would get rid of, and that would allow for ingress and egress traffic out of that parking area to the north there of that kind of red circled area. That purple right there, that's the parking garage that they would want to build and utilize, obviously, for future expansion. But not only that, Wizard, I believe you found in the report, too, that they list some of the other key agenda items from the Eastern Gateway project now translated here. Could you tell us about those?
Yes, and just for the people that are listening, I think this is on the Eastern Gateway project here. Is the red circles on? Was that Disney Way and Harbor Boulevard, just about Disney Way and Clementine Street, hanging around there? Is that what that is? Kind of
Right.
blurry. Yeah. So, and which again, if you can't see it, it is on the obviously the eastern side. It kind of hugs the 5 freeway, and then there's Harbor Boulevard, the 5 freeway, and then just right now it's kind of random collection of buildings and dirt lots. That's where that Eastern Gateway project would be built, and hopefully, since it's already been designed, I'm hoping that hopefully it's the first thing they can get under construction. Then they
I agree.
announced today 60 billion in new investments over the next decade. So why not start on that next year? Like immediately after it's approved, start on it
Right.
next summer so it can be done. I feel like
And this
these
is
easy
something
things, they should be done.
And this is something that the Disneyland Resort has needed for decades, actually. I believe at full build out, the old Disneyland parking lot that is now occupied by Disney California Adventure. Actually, I think at full build out, I've heard estimates as much as 19,000 spaces. Now, think about this. Mickey and Friends parking structure only added about 10,000 spaces, right? So you go from 19,000 at full down to 10,000, even though you've added, a new park essentially. And the parking at Disneyland Resort has been at a deficit ever since, even with Pixar, even with Toy Story, even with the Toy Story expansion and so forth. We're talking, I think, fully built out here, maybe upwards of 17,000 spaces. It's actually listed here in this
Yeah,
report.
yeah,
The world,
17,000, which was good. It's a nice,
right.
nice, almost increase, nice dramatic increase there.
Right, but the time that but in the time that we've lost the Disneyland parking lot, and even at 17,000, we've added Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, we've added Cars Land, we've added
Mhm.
California Adventure in general,
Mhm.
we've added Avengers Campus. Every single big
Mhm.
expansion that any of us have grown up with in the last 20 years has been added, even though the parking has not been added to reflect it necessarily. We're still at that
Mhm.
deficit. The Eastern Gateway finally eliminates that, but it also, there's a crucial point here, Wizard, that we saw reflected in this EIR. The transportation hub, right? The bus drop off
Yeah.
and all that,
Mhm.
that gets moved to the other side, just as Eastern Gateway had proposed. Is that correct?
Mhm. Yes, and speaking of parking, by the way, when the expansions do happen, we'll be losing those parking spaces in those parking lots, so might be a bit of a
Correct.
deficit again. But yeah,
That's
so
true.
we're finally gonna move that big hub that is currently above California. Eventually, you walk through it if you come around the eastern side of the Esplanade. You go through security there. See where the buses drop off from Toy Story and all that good stuff. That'll be moved under the new Eastern Gateway parking garage, which was supposed to happen a while ago. So that does a couple things. One, it relieves all that congestion, right? You don't have to all this eliminate all this turning off on Harbor Boulevard. It relieves all this because there's people walking there and there's vehicles. I'm surprised there's actually not more pedestrian accidents or car diversion because there's so much traffic right there. But that's all gone. It pushes the security bubble a little right to the street of Harbor Boulevard, and there'll be a nice pedestrian bridge over there. And also, most importantly, opens up another massive piece of expansion for Hollywoodland and California Adventure, which will be quite nice. But yeah, this new Eastern Gateway project, which is going right. I mean, they bought the Carousel Inn years ago and demolished it just for this project, and
Right.
it's been empty. And that, according to the environmental impact report, they'll have not one, but potentially up to 3 pedestrian crossings across Harbor Boulevard to help with pedestrian safety and such, which would be great. And
Right.
these connection will have connections to the McDonald's and all the businesses on Harbor Boulevard, which was a big problem back in 2017.
Right. Well, the main reason why the Eastern Gateway project wasn't approved is because those businesses who were going to be, they were going to be bypassed by the traffic patterns
Mhm.
as instituted by the Eastern Gateway project. Well, they all collectively came together and said, "Hey, you're not going to do that." And well, Disney folded and relented, which I actually think is
Which I think
kind of a
is
good thing.
I think is, I mean, yeah, a good thing that they didn't do in that respect, but it's also pretty stupid that they can just come up with a compromise with the businesses like they're doing now. Like instead of
Exactly.
27, just giving up. So okay, let's talk about it. And then we'll move security over here. And how about this? Maybe we'll
Right.
add some staircases. Instead of just totally abandoning it and they cancel that other hotel. I'm like, whoa, I like that's a very extreme approach, but I'm just glad that it's back on the table and it seems to have figured out a solution that they probably should have come up with 6 years ago. But it's okay. At least we're back.
Agreed. And if viewers at home can see this screen, I'm sorry, guys. This is a very a visual version of the theme park universe show. If you see to the north of California Adventure, which is at the bottom, I think, left of your screen right now, you can see to the north of that. That's where that transportation hub that we're talking about is located.
Mhm.
Now, what's very, very significant about that transportation hub being moved potentially to the other side is, well, it would allow for more, let's say, Uber, and Lyft drop-off zones, right? I think right now they're using the 15-minute lot, or the old 15-minute lot that used to be just south of the transportation hub, and that area backs up all the way to Anaheim, into Harbor and stuff like that. It is a disaster every single day. All of that gets relocated to the other side, right? And you can have modern facilities for that. But with those removed, you now gain all this room for potential California Adventure expansion to the north of Hollywoodland. And that is, I think, what is most crucial here. And that is honestly what sidelined Avengers Campus initially. Avengers Campus was it was originally supposed to be located in Hollywoodland. But because they didn't gain that extra real estate to the north, well, that really kind of limited their options to the expansion pad to the south, which is right next to Cars Land.
Yeah, no, would have been a nice, bigger, better Avengers Campus, but that's all right.
Well,
But
never say never. It could expand to the north yet
yeah,
again. We'll see.
still could expand all the way up. Then that'll be like half the park. Which hey, I like Marvel,
Right.
but as long as they do it correctly. But yeah, and it's interesting. So now with the Eastern Gateway there it provides yet another connection through the Garden Walk to the proposed what they call the Southeast District, and that is on the Toy Story lot down there, which they want to rezone to be able to not just theme park space, but to be able to do a same thing, the mixed use space, be able to put a whole bunch of hotels, themed entertainment, and Disney Springs like development there, which would be quite nice. And they announced that there's a potential multiple transportation options they want to have to connect some of these things, this lot and the main lot, and some of them are themed ride systems they have put in the report. So that's pretty interesting, isn't it, Dr. Drip?
Oh, it is. I believe it's in one of the reports. I could probably find it, but Scott Houston was kind enough to clip out this excerpt here. This is 4.6.1 Disneyland Drive pedestrian crossings. In order to facilitate the development of new attractions west of Disneyland Drive, up to 2 additional pedestrian bridges or crossings may be constructed over Disneyland Drive and will serve as a continuation of the themed environment across the roadway, similar to the existing Downtown Disney crossing, with no access to and from the public right-of-way. And you actually do experience this at Downtown Disney right now. I believe it's in between, what is it, Ralph Brennan's Jazz Kitchen and Legoland, I believe, is where that bridge is. And a lot of people don't even recognize that they're actually walking over a bridge. But yes,
it's so big and so nicely themed. It's like you don't even know.
Exactly. These crossings may be in the form of a bridge and sunken roadway similar to the existing Downtown Disney Bridge, an elevated bridge with similar aesthetic treatment and dimensions as the existing Downtown Disney Bridge, or a themed ride system. And that ride system language right there is what Wizard was talking about. And what examples of a ride crossing do they have? Well, they have the Skyliner as featured at Walt Disney World. It's interesting. I think it was my mom who said, like, oh, they should build a Skyliner to link the areas of the Toy Story lot to the Esplanade or Disneyland Resort Core, if you want to call it, right? Well, here it is. Here is Disney actually proposing in this environmental impact report, the ability to do this. Also, too, People Mover. Now, what's interesting about the People Mover being referenced here, that actually goes back to one of the very first plans for the Disneyland Resort concept. Originally, the Eastern Gateway parking garage and a Mickey and Friends type parking garage, but much bigger, were supposed to be kind of phase 1 parking structures, and how they would connect to what at that time was, I believe it was the Disneyland Center or Disneyland Plaza, I believe. Now we know that it's the Esplanade. would be a series of people movers taking you directly to Disneyland Plaza. So that concept right there, that goes back to the 90s when the Imagineers first tackled the Disneyland Resort project.
Yes, what's good about these ride crossings is I know in that previous picture it says initially over Disneyland Drive, but I mean they could be just so like that'd be phase one. I mean they expanded not just to the new sections over Disneyland Drive and the Toy Story lot, but what's to stop them from expanding them to Mickey and Friends, or the Eastern Gateway, and create a nice little transportation, so like a mini version of what was proposed, like what you said way back when. So that's a good thing about these phase one type things, because when it's there, as I was talking about with Tomorrowland earlier today, if it was there, it gets the ball rolling for future cool expansions.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
who not to say that again, if they work with Anaheim to get it extended to Angel Stadium or the Arctic, for people taking the train. And I mean, this could be pretty big stuff here because both of these are cheaper than a monorail, I assume. So it should be pretty easier to expand than the monorail.
Yes. I mean, as far as the people mover goes, I would still say it's very ambitious, but the Skyliner, I mean, that is it's the reason why Walt Disney World employed that method rather than any of the ones that they have available there already, being the monorail or even the people mover itself. The Skyliner is far more affordable, let's say, far more economic to actually build, facilitate, maintain, all that kind of stuff. You're just talking about posts in the ground, and you're not talking about a beamway that is constantly in the air there. I mean, it's very, very, I would say, feasible. Capacity, it's always kind of an issue there, but I mean, I experienced it myself when I actually went to Epcot recently after the park closed. We headed over to the Skyliner in order to use that as transportation, and I was expecting a long line, and yes, there was, but it was actually handled quite efficiently and quite fast. So a system like this, a system of conveyance to transport you to these various kind of disparate areas that exist at the Disneyland Resort right now, I think is freaking awesome, and I think guests would absolutely love this. And it's honestly what the Imagineers laying out the Disneyland Resort all the way back 25 years ago originally envisioned for themselves.
Yeah, and I just actually remembered how they said next year's D23 Expo will be kind of spread out to all these different venues, and just think with these if they had these transportation systems, it'd be much easier during those years to get from one place to another. It would be just so cool.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It'd be absolutely phenomenal, and it would restore, honestly, the Skyliner. That has obviously historical implications where you have, this was part of the fabric of Disneyland for quite some time here. I believe I've actually found. Let me see if I actually did find this. I believe I found that concept here that actually shows this. Let me see if I can actually get this link here. See if this will work. Well, that you know what? That just did not work out at all. That's just great. Okay, let me just see here. Don't worry, Wizard. You can just cut this out and it'll be just fine. It'll be like nothing ever happened. Oh, wait. Nope. Oh, man. I'm looking at it right here and I can't see
You're
it.
looking
Let
for
me see if I can bring it up here.
the Westcott plan? Was that the one?
That's the one
yes,
right
here
here.
it is.
You can see that.
Yes.
I just can't. I can't extend it for you guys. I'm so sorry. I really do apologize. But if you
can see it because those lines, those dark lines, that's the people mover
Correct.
going to the
Correct.
plaza there, and those black boxes are the stations and dots
Right.
over there.
The-
So yeah, it'll be
you're-
one coming from the east and the west. It looks like.
and you can see where the monorail was supposed to traverse back when Westcott was still a thing. It was supposed to head around Space Station Earth, which interestingly enough was supposed to be 300 feet tall, which is actually preserved even in this new EIR. We found that when we were looking through the documents. We were like, oh, well,
Yeah,
this
the
is
maximum height 300 feet. I'm like, oh wow.
right. And it's like, well, we're we have nothing 300 feet tall. That's crazy. That's twice the size of the Matterhorn. Well, that was part of the original Westcott plans that would have allowed for that. And well, you see the monorail right here as it kind of traverses around Space Station Earth in a very similar way that the monorail traverses around Spaceship Earth over at Walt Disney World's Epcot. But you can see here, it was actually supposed to go into that hotel district, past where the Paradise Pier Hotel sits today. So that's kind of an interesting thing that obviously didn't last long, but you can see how large those parking structures were on each side. And if you really squint your eyes, you can see that they were supposed to be moving walkways, moving sidewalks in a very similar manner, actually, that Universal Studios Florida employs that technology, right? If you park in one of their parking structures over in Orlando, well, you have moving walkways. Disneyland Resort was supposed to employ a similar method here.
Now, I'm looking at this, and goodness, I wonder with the new expansions into those lots. I'm thinking, really, if they want to spend money, they could rejigger the monorail to have those same two stations over there in the new theme park or new lands instead of hotel district. But I mean, because it's kind of a trek to get, and that's another thing. You think maybe they'd have another entrance of California, but if they just do the expanding the parks, you think they have maybe another entrance from downtown Disney to the two expansion pads, because it's kind of a trek to go all the way from one to another, or at least to have an entrance to the hotels like they do with the Grand Californian, even if it's not like a proper entrance, or again, a monorail stop or both. I feel like they can still do it.
They still could. You would have to, it gets tricky when you have to regulate certain passes, right? We see this with Universal Studios Florida and Universal Studios Islands of Adventure right now with the the Hogwarts Express, right? You have to show you have to show that you can actually enter into the next park over. You would have to employ a similar tactic here, which is why they opted not to, even in the case of California Adventure, and obviously cost. But you can see here that they maintain the current Tomorrowland station, right? But if you see, there are 3 additional platforms that are built here. They might be able to maintain the downtown Disney one, but you can see there are 2 additional stops. One in Westcott, right, and then one in that kind of lower section of the hotel district. They absolutely still could do that, and honestly, it would make the monorail far more convenient as transportation. But you have certain capacity issues, right? It wasn't really built for transportation. It was built as a ride, and you'd have to overcome those things. And I just don't think that they wanted to endure any of that, and that's why. I mean, honestly. The last time they really did move the monorail almost at all was, I think, Indiana Jones in 1995, 4, something like that, right? That was the last time that they actually moved that. And Paul Pressler made it clear, we are not going to move the monorail with Disney California Adventure because the budgets had been cut to such an extent. And they've been left in the same spot ever since.
I hope they change their mind in a couple of decades. You know what I'm saying? I hope their mind is changed.
I think they will. As part of the version 1 of the Eastern Gateway, the monorail was indeed going to move a little bit in order to open up that pad for California Adventure to the north there. So I think it will, but this is very far off. That 3,000 number that you quoted before, that's kind of where this lives and breathes here. But for those who might be looking at all this and say, well, they really haven't invested all that much into the parks as of late. Well, Disney would at least like you to think they're committing themselves to really, really big capital expenditures for the next 10 years. So Scott Gooston reports here, Disney will spend $60 billion over the next 10-year period to, quote, expand and enhance its domestic and international parks and cruise line capacity, nearly twice the amount spent in the previous 10-year period, the company revealed in a new SEC filing. Now, some people are elated. They're like, oh my gosh, $60 billion. That is so much money. And Wizard, we got to take people down to earth just a little bit. What do you want to start off with this one?
Well, 60 billion. So the past few years, they've been doing about $6 billion a year. Now, you'd think maybe they do the same amount for the 60 over divided by 10, but maybe if we're lucky here. Now, there's one year where they kind of go like above and a little bit above and really go all out, and then kind of be cyclical, and then go down. So maybe spend like whatever, I don't know what it costs to maintain everything. Maybe just we'll have 1 year of maintaining everything, and then like a couple years later, really go all out and expand. Hopefully, but I don't know. But the current $6 billion a year thing they're doing, that seems to be almost continuation of that. But again, you forgot the inflation is a good point there that you can bring up there about how it may be a little less than what they're projecting here.
Right. I mean, honestly, and they have this graph here, and they showed, which attractions open per fiscal year and so forth. Look, when Cars Land opened in fiscal year 2012, I mean, what was that? The whole reinvention of Disney California Adventure, right? That Cars Land was a part of was, I think, $1.2 billion. That same project now, I mean, we're talking well over 1.7, I would think. I mean, it just doesn't go as far as it did. So this commitment to, spending on average about $6 billion annually for the next 10 years, it sounds like a huge number, but in actuality, right? It's $6 billion, like you said so eloquently, Wizard. That's what they've been spending now. And have you seen where that $6 billion is going? Have I seen it? I mean, I see a lot of international investment, and that will probably continue, but Disney's also committing to increasing its cruise line fleet, right? And each one of those is at least $1 billion, if not more, because, well, these ships get far larger and more extravagant with each new iteration, right? So we had to factor in those costs. Inflation has just been a killer. The cost of energy, the cost of operation, the cost of doing business in any of these markets has gone up tremendously. Labor obviously has gone up. So this $6 billion figure, just to put it into perspective, folks, Disney, for the last, I believe, 2 years, at least the years in 2021 and 2022, have spent $30 billion each year on content production. That's it. $30 billion. So they're going to be spending more in the production of content in the last 2 years than they will in the production of new theme park shows and attractions in the next 10 years with the Disney Parks Experiences division. And keep in mind, folks, Disney Parks Experiences and Products has been shoring, I think, on average, anywhere between 40 to as high as 60% of the overall revenue every single year for Disney. And they're spending a fraction on that division that they would on the studio. It's just not as much as people think. And in some cases, you could make the argument that it's actually less.
Yeah, which is a bit sad, but I'm just hoping that the investments of the $60 billion will go wisely. Some good stuff like from Disneyland Ford will come out of it, and whatever expansions they do. Because when the money's tight, you gotta use it preciously. Gotta use it preciously.
Right. You do have to use it preciously, and it's interesting that you do say that here. Let me see here if I have that quote. So Iger, while talking about this, at this conference here says, quote, "We're incredibly mindful of the financial underpinning of the company, the need to continue to grow in terms of the bottom line, the need to invest wisely so that we're increasing the returns on invested capital, and the need to maintain a balance sheet for a variety of reasons. The company is able to absorb those costs and continue to grow the bottom line and look expansively at how we return the value and capital to our shareholders." Well, that's all well and good here. But I had some differences on this opinion here, and I'll go ahead and share those with the folks here today. Here was my post here on Twitter. So I'll give myself a little shout out here. "It's difficult to believe in this, quote, incredibly mindful and invest wisely philosophy when you watch almost $250 million, that's right, folks, $250 million get stripped apart in the Epcot World Showcase Lagoon, and even more wasted on re-recording the replacement soundtrack, which is a whole nother story. A $1 billion hotel gets shuttered, and more wasted redoing work that was already completed." So this is the current kind of track record here for this kind of wise investment right here. And honestly, it just hasn't been that strong. I do appreciate that Bob Iger is emphasizing this point, but I'm sorry, the actions don't simply reflect the wording here. In fact, I was telling other people that I've never seen a company so wasteful in this fashion. So also understand, folks, as part of this $60 billion, you had to allow for at least some of it to be wasted and thrown away carelessly. So you got to factor that in too.
Yeah, and as well as current projects and just current under construction projects and the international parks and the the maintenance of the general parks. But it could be a Disney decade, could be Disney same aid. Who knows? And I guess we'll have to find out. And in fact, go ahead, Doctor.
Well, I wanted to bring up a few things. I know we're kind of winding down the show here, but I wanted to bring this to your attention here, Wizard. Scott Gustin, he elaborates here. As part of the, quote, turbocharging of the park segment, Disney shared a slide that features 5 specific targets. Quote, accelerate storytelling, expand footprint, advance commercial, leverage talent, and reach new fans. Now, it's interesting, expand footprint. And I believe there was a quote out there. Let's see if I can actually find that real fast. Yeah, "We stand alone when it comes to scale, and while our scale is impressive, we have no shortage of space or regions of the world in which to tell new stories." I think they said they had something like 7. Yeah, here we go. In a statement, Disney says the company has over 1,000 acres of land for possible future development to expand theme park spaces across its sites, the equivalent of about 7 new Disneyland parks. That is true. Here's kind of the issue. I think this is kind of a response to Universal in a way, in this kind of, and I know that's going to sound a little crazy, but Epic Universe right now is obviously it's the first theme park made in the social media era, right? This is a big expansion for the Universal's core product out there in Florida, but it sits on real estate in which they could build not just 1 or 2 more parks, but potentially even 3 if they lay it out correctly. Well, they probably won't. They won't likely do that, but they could. Like, there is enough land to do that. They are expanding their footprint when it comes to places in Texas, expanding their footprint when it comes to places like in Vegas, maybe potentially Europe. That is always on the table. We just saw a report that they're going to be doubling the size of their Beijing park, right, with a massive investment out there. Expanding the footprint is interesting, but reach new fans. Now, why would they include reach new fans? I mean, Disney has been such an enduring brand for so long. People have associated theme parks with Disney since the end of time. Why are they saying those exact words right there? Folks, we are growing up in a generation that doesn't have the ties to Disney that we may have had when growing up, right? A lot of people, a lot of let's say boomers or Generation X, right? They grew up in the time when, hey, the Michael Eisner was just coming around and we're going to invest all kinds of money into Splash Mountain, Star Tours, Cap Neo, all that kind of stuff, right? Typhoon Lagoon, Blizzard Beach, and all that. Well, that hasn't been the case for what, 25 years, 20 years or something like that, right?
Mhm.
And what has cropped up in that time? Well, Universal has cropped up, and I hear so many
Mhm.
people who are like, "Yeah, I've only gone to Universal parks. I've never been to a Disney park, or I like
Mhm.
Universal more than I do Disney." That's where their allegiance is. That's where the nostalgia is. Okay, so this reach new fans thing. That is some prominent, some strong wording here in by a brand that we thought was everlasting, ever enduring. This is an admission that they need to reach new fans for this upcoming generation.
Yeah, and it's interesting if they expand the footprint as well. Obviously, at Disneyland, they're expanding the footprint, which is so funny to me. They really, rarely, they always find a way to expand the footprint, but at Disney World, they're busy replacing things or retheming,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they have all the space. So I thought that expanding the footprint, at least in regards to Disney World, was quite funny. I hope they
One
do
more.
though, because boy, they need it. But even they just showed Animal Kingdom. That's not expanding. That's again replacing and retheme.
It's replacing and rethink. That's the kind of thing right there. Now, if you look at Universal, yeah, they've been a little bit. They've been a little bit. I don't know, slow on the expansion of their parks in very, very recent years because they're building a new park in Epic Universe, obviously. But for a while there, they were in the expansion business. I mean, look at King Kong. I mean, look at Velocicoaster, put in places where things never were supposed to be placed there at all, and they're fitting them in there. They're expanding rather than just in the replacement game, and that is a very cool to see. Honestly, that's awesome. Walt Disney World, I would say for the last 10 years, you couldn't really say that. But I wanted to get your last opinion here, Wizard. This was via Ashley Carter here. Disney has released comments from Parks Chairman Josh D'Amaro on its plans to invest $60 billion in the parks. Says this: "We have a wealth of untapped stories to bring life across our businesses," said Josh D'Amaro. Frozen, one of the most successful and popular animated franchises of all time, could have a presence at the Disneyland Resort. Wakanda has yet to be brought to life. The world of Coco is just waiting to be explored. There's a lot of storytelling opportunity. I think this is two things here. One, this is a recommitment to IP. There is no original attractions here whatsoever. But two, he mentioned some key franchises there. Wizard, what did you take from this?
Well, see, that's why I'm curious. I mean, I'm trying to think if those would go. If each of those things would go to the expansion pads. I guess I think Frozen would pop into Disneyland up top there, um, and then Coco and Wakanda in the California Adventure portion, which would be again fantastic franchises. Um, I would love to go visit Wakanda and Coco. And again, you can, like you said earlier, stick someone Kanto next to Coco, make it a massive, Mexican heritage land or Mexican America land, something like that. That'd be really cool. I hope it comes, and as we know, Frozen was almost coming to Meta, the Bay Area between Tomorrowland and Fantasyland. So maybe they can get some like they got a Paris and Hong Kong over in that brand new expansion pad to get Frozen and have a nice gateway, nice little crossing the bridge onto the beautiful lake there into Arendelle, crossing from Critter Country. I feel like that'd be a nice gateway to the Disneyland expansion over there to the north. Um, and then kind of coming through. Ooh, maybe like a nice mountain facade coming into Wakanda from California Adventure to that expansion pad. That'd be really cool as
Not
well because
bad. That's not bad.
and the movie, it's a secret. You have to go. You fly through this invisible thing, and then you just enter. So I can imagine walking through that themed bridge or ride system, whatever they use to connect the two, and then coming right through a nice expansion, like come right out from a tunnel. Then woo, you're in Wakanda. Like that'd be pretty awesome. That would be pretty awesome.
I man, that's some cool stuff right there. Not even gonna lie, it's interesting. Wakanda has been on again, on the table, off again for quite some time. I remember proposals to change the Wonders of Life Pavilion at Epcot to reflect Wakanda. Because it's kind of
Oh
domed,
yeah.
right?
Hmm.
inside. You can see how that could kind of work. The original Marvel attraction, before the e-ticket, the version of the e-ticket with King Thanos that
Hmm.
we are slated to get now, previously that was supposed to be a Quinjet adventure to Wakanda. And
Hmm.
you would have had a battle ensue similar to what we saw depicted in Infinity War. Also, this Frozen was slated for Disneyland Resort. Actually, for as long as I can remember doing this, honestly, like 7 years or something like that.
Hmm.
That I've been keeping up with the Disneyland Resort expansions and so forth. Okay, so maybe about half the time that I've been doing this, but
Hmm.
for a significant portion of time there, Frozen. They have won Frozen Disneyland for forever. Maybe the first time in forever. I see what I did there. But no, I mean, I remember when it was supposed to be slidden in this area between Galaxy's Edge, roughly, and Toontown, roughly, right? And Toontown was going to go away, or at least part of it, for this Frozen thing. But they had since settled on the area where a lot of people are thinking where Avatar is going to sit, right to the north of Tomorrowland. And it was, I mean, very very close from being announced and approved at this last D23 Expo, and it just didn't make the cut. Well, obviously things change when CEO is ousted by Bob Iger. Bob Iger takes the seat back, and the office with its 2 showers, and he approves. He goes in the direction of Avatar, and well, that all kind of flips right there. But you can see that dream of bringing Frozen to Disneyland Resort has not died, and now that they've built something pretty incredible out there in Hong Kong, don't think that that's going to go away. That may be slated for these expansion pads, as Wizard has astutely put right here. We'll just have to wait and see, but that's where their kind of head is at right there, reutilizing maybe old concepts, giving them new life, and putting them in there. Stuff that they've
Which
already
is,
kind of teased at, he's hinted at. Go ahead.
I think, yeah, which is good because one, that the R&D is already done. He already built it, so it's like a clone. Then two, it acts as again a nice buffer for noise for the Frozen Ever After ride show
Very
building,
true.
right? And then
Mm-hmm.
even the North Mountain adds a nice visual buffer out of the berm out there into the residents. So Frozen really Arendelle in that Disneyland spot up on the expansion front really does kind of solve a lot of problems or issues that are brought up in the EIR. So I think that's a pretty sure bet coming to at least one of those expansions. And then Wakanda, if they do really go into the mountain, put the mountain facade because it is wrapped in a mountain ring, that will help as well. So, and it's good that they actually have those and restrictions because it allows for some great theming and visual interest for us, the guests, coming to this nice themed backdrop instead of like what you see at the Incredicoaster where you see the power lines and stuff like that. We had
Right.
nice mountain structure, be fully immersive, which is pretty awesome and cancels out the noise for the residents, which is an all around win situation for everybody.
Win win win.
Absolutely fantastic. Oh boy, I cannot wait for this. I must say, there's actually a community meeting if anyone wants to go. Community workshop in a park. Forgot where it was, but it's in October. Disney's hosting it. It's in a park in Anaheim. You can go on DisneylandForward.com if you want to see where it is. But that it's like it's like a movie in the park too. I think I saw, so that's pretty cool.
Oh,
Um, and yeah, it should be under a community meeting somewhere on the top there. But
right. Community events.
yeah, and I think it's the upcoming events. What is this? Yeah, October annual fall festival Halloween parade. So yeah, Anaheim Fall and Festival Parade. They'll be over there and
They've
showing you
already
the updated at the EIR.
previous events.
And there's a whole bunch of previous events right there. One of which I went to, and yeah, so pretty cool stuff. And again, if everything goes on track, should be approved early next year. And again, hopefully they will get the ball rolling, at least on the Eastern Gateway, since that's probably the easiest puzzle piece out of this, because you already know what it's gonna look like. So you already designed it. hopefully when it's approved, they'll say, "Guess what, guys? Construction starts this summer or something." So that get some movement there. Be
Yeah,
quite
it's a
nice.
30-year thing though. We'll
Yeah,
see.
you know,
We'll see.
it is a 30-year thing, but one, as you said, they've been needing it no matter what. They still definitely need more parking, so that's a
Absolutely.
necessity.
Correct.
Two,
It's a necessity
NBC
before a need.
yeah, yeah, NBC Universal's Evolution Plan, also a 30-year plan, or all the way to 2035, so like 25-year plan,
Sure.
was approved in 2013, and I even looked up an article on the approval date. Actually, even before it was approved, it was meant. Universal released a press release saying construction will start this summer on the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. So it's possible, but obviously they're a little faster on things. But I'm hoping Disney does the same thing, at least with the parking structure, because it's also it doesn't interfere much with yeah with the guest, because it's off site. It won't be causing any in park disruptions. So I feel like it's, again, pretty easy thing to start. Hopefully, fingers crossed, and maybe a pretty cheap thing. I mean, cheaper than the rest of the stuff they're gonna build. So fingers crossed. I feel like they might start that before the Avengers E ticket, to be honest. but which is, either way, it's still good because, like I said, much needed, because we lost 19,000 spaces with California Adventure. So
Right.
definitely much needed there. But hey, guys, you want to keep up. Keep up. We have 30 years of episodes to cover this. Isn't that crazy? What do you think about that, Dr. J? We have 30 years. We could be covering this until I'm 57, 60 years old.
I guess I'm gonna be here for it. We're gonna cover it to the greatest extent possible, and I can't wait to write some of this stuff with. I guess my grandkids will have to write some of this stuff on the pace that Disney is working. But no, I mean I am excited about Disneyland Forward. I'm excited about reaching this milestone, but it's with a cautious attitude that, look, this is one step in a very, very, very long walk to get to the front of that turnstile, right? I mean, it's it's gonna take some time to get this all going here. We had to just be mindful of that. And yeah, I mean, $60 billion sounds great. Oh, Disneyland Forward. When are they gonna build? What are they gonna build? I don't know. Frozen. Don't quite get. Have some restraint with that mindset, because we're a long way there. But yes, in the most immediate future, got to get that parking done. I think they will, and that we should be looking for an announcement, I would think, within the next 5 years for sure.
And you guys gotta stay tuned here and make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel Theme Park Universe, like the YouTube channel Theme Park Universe, and if you're on podcast, I'll be turning on subscriptions there for some special paid episodes coming up next month. Those paid episodes will have access to video as well, so you can see what we're talking about. Make sure to subscribe to the Spotify and stay tuned for some special guests coming in the next month or two.
Oh yeah,
big stuff. And if you're watching on Apple, or listening on Apple, thank you very much. We enjoy it. We enjoy the Apple Podcast. Keep those notifications on. And I'm Theme Park Wizard. That's Dr. Dre, Mr. Vashsky, who you can find where again?
At that Park Place. And if I'm not doing videos with Jonas and Pro over there, well, it's going to be right here at Theme Park Universe.
That's right. And check out the Patreon. And guess what? Have a spacious day. You get it? Because universe.